Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here with two mini book reviews. I'm going to be reviewing the two books that I read for President's Month. I decided I wanted to read books that were either about or written by U.S. presidents. So let's begin with the first one that I read. And it's a relatively recent book. It was just released this year. And that book is Washington's Farewell, The Founding Fathers' Warning to Future Generations by John Avlon, who is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast. And in this particular book, we follow the construction of the farewell address, its inspiration, the pillars of liberty that included the inspiration and what Washington meant. And then it also talked about future presidents and how they were inspired by the address at hand. With regard to the construction, Washington made an address when he retired as General of the Army. And while he wanted nothing more but to live the rest of his life at his home in Mount Vernon in Virginia, there were things that were already beginning to intensify, and in order for Washington to keep the country together, he felt it was in his best interest to serve as the first president, as the people had wanted. And Washington proved that he was our main moderate, independent president, and the fact that even after his tenure, things were already beginning to split between the Federalists like John Adams and Alexander Hamilton and the Democratic Republicans such as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. But at the same time, everybody has been able to make their argument in any which way, picking and choosing details, so that they could stand in good impression in the eyes of Washington. The Unions and the Confederates both made arguments in their favor. Eisenhower probably made what seemed like the clearest of arguments. Then you had Theodore Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who were huge in reshaping the office of the presidency, but in other cases, they did their best to follow Washington's mantra. And then there were some that didn't necessarily follow the mantra and instead went their own way, like Harry S. Truman. I enjoyed reading this. I thought it was very accessible, and I felt that Avlon did a very good job getting right to the point on details that he felt were worthy of a place in here. Not every detail that I was looking for was in here. Washington did make mention to the fact that he was in favor of the idea that everybody pay their fair share when it comes to taxes. He felt that paying taxes was a necessary way to keep things going in the country. But there was no mention to the 16th Amendment that was instated in 1913 that discussed the legality of an income tax. The taxes during Washington's administration were primarily on goods, and primarily they were sin taxes, such as that on whiskey, which hence led to the Whiskey Rebellion, which was a major means of income for western Pennsylvania. I gave this 4 out of 5 on my Goodreads. I think that this is something that's definitely worth looking into, especially if you want a greater understanding of Washington's farewell address. And with both reviews, I'm going to leave links down below to the reviews that I wrote on Goodreads. Next book that I read was actually put together by a U.S. president, and that president was John Quincy Adams, and I read a collection of his poetry under the title of Poems of Religion and Society by John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was our 6th president. He is the first direct relative to serve as president. His father was John Adams, our 2nd president. John Quincy Adams' political career started when George Washington appointed him as a minister resident to the Netherlands, and he had very similar positions until he became Secretary of State under James Monroe in 1817. He was very orchestrative in the construction of the Monroe Doctrine. He was president from 1825 to 1829, and then from 1831 until his death in 1848, he served as a representative to his district in Massachusetts, which most political figures, most presidents go right into retirement. They may do some philanthropy, very much like Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, and Bill Clinton have done. But John Quincy Adams went right back and served in Congress. But this particular collection of poetry, he talks a lot about real-life issues and faith. Many of his poems are religious and talk about ecstatic moments involving relations with God. But he also, I would say that the first poem in here, The Wants of Man, is the one that really catches my attention the most. It's very jingly and catchy, and he does such a good job with rhyme scheme. Just about everything he writes is with rhyme scheme. He has 2 or 3 methods that he uses. It's usually either A-B-A-B or A-A-B, A-A-B, or A-B-A-B, A-A-B, A-A-B, which I think it's much... I'm leaving a review to that down below anyhow, so you will probably be able to develop a greater understanding as to what I'm getting at. I think that his poetry is quite clever. John Quincy Adams doesn't necessarily experiment too much with his poetry, and there's probably poems that are not going to catch people's attention, but I still feel that for someone that served as a president and has a very large and impressive political resume, these are definitely American archives that are worth getting your hands on and checking out. And I gave this 4.5 out of 5 on my Goodreads. Alrighty, this is what I read during the month of February for President's Month. I'm still reading a little bit more for the month, but now I'm just starting on a bit of a hodgepodge of things that I plan to read before I prepare for Season 6 of Literary Gladiators. Thank you for tuning into this video, and for now, keep reading.